Hello my friends, it is Wednesday, so welcome back. If you notice some changes around this video, it is only how it looks. The topics, everything is exactly the same, we're just upping the quality. You're welcome. We begin with the Russian economy segment, then we'll go through international news and we'll end with the front lines as we always do in every video. Today you will find out how much Russia spends on war in 1 week or in 1 day. A little about the priorities of Putin's Russia. Over the next 3 years, the state will allocate 110 billion rubles for the construction of schools, 160 billion rubles for the repair of housing, and 380 billion rubles for 1 week of war. 380 billion rubles. Now, how much that is 1 day of war? I made that calculation to USD. It is about 500 to 650 million USD per day. This is how much Russia spends on this war. Soon, the state will no longer need repairs, schools and hospitals at all. Citizens should know nothing but military knowledge and ideally be assigned to a military unit by the age of 5 or 6. Anyone who thinks differently will be declared foreign spies and enemies of the great fatherland. Talking about how much Russia spends, well, let's find out where they get the money and if they do get the money, because that number has also fallen a lot. Russia's oil and gas revenues to hit lowest level since 2020 pandemic. Budget expects $100 billion in taxes, down 22% from 2024. Falling fuel prices, stronger ruble hit hard. Moscow plans to hike military spending for its brutal war in Ukraine, raise VAT, borrow more to cover deficit. And in this context, I will segue into the recent hit of a Russian oil refinery. As they say, a Russian oil refinery a day keeps the doctor away, or in this case, keeps the invasion away. You gotta hit one refinery a day. And this one, 1st of October, actually tonight, yesterday night, when we were sleeping tonight, this happened. Oil refinery in Yaroslavl, Russia. Meanwhile, the city administration announces training session for the Ministry of Emergency Situations. Well, you gotta train a bit before they strike you, not at the same time or after the strike happens. Somebody should tell them that. You can see a beautiful column of smoke. Oil refinery a day. I hope it makes your day. Let's just look at it from another angle also, just because we can, because a lot of Russians do film these smoke columns of freedom. I want to tell you a little bit about Yaroslavl, the oil refinery located near the city of Yaroslavl. Right here, I'll zoom a little bit out for you so you know where we are. So it's north of Moscow, around 600 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. And I think Yaroslavl is even closer to Estonia, where I am now, than to Ukrainian border. Now, what's very interesting about this city is that it predates Moscow. It is older than Moscow. And it's very important that I read you a very specific part of its history, Yaroslavl history. Based on its earliest data foundation, Yaroslavl is the oldest of all the existing towns on the Volga. Yaroslavl was founded by Yaroslav the Wise, a prince of Kievan Rus. It is so strange that this city north of Moscow now was founded by a prince of Kievan Rus, capital being in Kiev. During the period of his ruling the Principality of Rostov, 988 to year 1010. That predates Moscow. Moscow was a fisherman's village back then. When he stepped ashore for the first time near the area now known as Strelka. So because oil refineries are being hit every day, because an oil refinery a day keeps the war away, Russians are now trying to find ways to defend them. And air defense missiles, air defense crews are not one of the ways, because there are so many oil refineries. Russia is so large, it's almost impossible to continuously defend all of the areas with air defense capabilities. So they are installing steel mesh. You know, the constructions use these same things. They're installing those around the oil refineries to protect them. It is definitely one way to do it, although this is probably quite expensive, and I would love to be the owner of this steel mesh, because usually construction sites, they rent out this steel mesh for the period of construction. So if I was the owner of company who rents out this for the Russian state to protect their oil refineries, I'd make a lot of money right now. So good for that guy. Anyway, the thing is, Ukrainian drones have powerful enough of an explosives inside them. And as we can see, the steel mesh is about, 1 to 2 meters away from the actual facility. So if a drone hits this outer layer, I mean, if it's directed explosion, it will still penetrate this area. It will do some defense, but definitely not fix the problem. Let's look at some of the statistics once again, just to look at the problem of Russian expenditure, Russian economy disaster from another angle. Russia risks a profound economic crisis due to Ukraine's systematic strikes on oil refineries. According to Rosstat, Russia processed approximately 5.5 million barrels of oil per day in 2024. By the fall of 25, the strikes had disrupted approximately 17% of this capacity. In the European part of the country, gasoline prices have increased by 15% and consumption rationing is being discussed. Oil exports, the main source of budget revenue, have fallen by almost 1 million barrels per day, hitting not only the domestic economy but also global markets. Kyiv's strategy is turning Russian energy sector into a weak point, undermining the Kremlin's ability to continue the war. Putin's ability of the war rests on the Russian oil market, Russian capability to pump out oil, refine it, and then sell it abroad. You take that away, you take away Putin's ability to invade anybody. Just to illustrate to you how bad the situation is, because when I say 15% of oil refining capability destroyed, it might not paint you the picture. I will let the Russians themselves talk. This is the Moscow Times, and they reported. I quote, "The situation is critical. Russia is preparing to buy gasoline abroad due to a shortage." You might ask, how is the biggest gas station in the world, which is Russia, buying gasoline abroad? I mean, they make that stuff. Thing is, some of the refineries do work, 80% of the refineries work, but the supply chains are set, and if you take out some of the refineries, so these areas that got their fuel from these refineries are now without fuel. Rerouting fuel from other refineries, all of that takes time. It strains up the logistical chain. There's not enough trucks, there's not enough trains. The roads are clogged up. There is a million logistical problems to switch up the logistic chain from one refinery to another refinery. It is in some cases easier to import gasoline from neighboring countries. Let's say in southern Russia, there's a shortage of gasoline. They could get that gasoline now from another refinery, let's say north of Russia, but it would be faster and easier just to buy this gasoline from Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia, whichever countries are willing to sell it and are closer to that specific oblast. So it doesn't matter that Russia overall is still refining enough gasoline. It's a matter of logistics in such a big country as Russia. It might be just more efficient to import gasoline, which is a very bizarre fact that Russia is preparing to do that. Of course, when gasoline is being a commodity in deficit, we are returning to the 90s. If you don't know, the 90s in the ex-Soviet Union, also Russia, was a very turbulent and dark times. Everything was stolen. Everything had a price, even human life, a very cheap price. Now Russia is returning to those days. There are coupons to buy gasoline, and in this video, which comes to us from Yalta, Crimea, we can see a guy siphoning out gasoline from what it seems to be a Lada Niva. See, this thing didn't really happen in Russia for 20 years because gas was cheap, it was readily available. It happened in the Soviet Union, and now it's back. Russians really wanted the Soviet Union back. Well, here you go, siphoning the gasoline out of somebody's car, stealing it. Now you might have thought, Yalta, where I have heard that name before. Yalta. Yes, the Yalta conference. You remember that conference? I mean, you cannot remember that. You were not alive by then. If you were, congratulations, man. But Yalta conference a few months before the end of the World War II. It was February 1945. Here on this photo you can see Stalin, Roosevelt and Churchill meeting to discuss post-war Europe and the world, because they knew in a few months Germany will be defeated. That conference happened in Yalta, Crimea. One of the goals of that conference was to give self-determination to the liberated peoples of Europe, intended mainly to discuss the re-establishment of the nations of war-torn Europe. That happened to France, that happened to Germany, but not Poland, not the Baltics, not the Finnish 11% of territory that Russians, Soviets occupied. So we felt betrayed by that conference. The Polish, the Baltics, and even Finland. We felt forgotten, betrayed, neglected. Just to give you this piece of history, this is the very same Yalta that now this citizen was siphoning gasoline from Russian-made Lada Niva. Russian newspapers. The Moscow Times gives us another great headline that illustrates the situation in Russia. I always love it when the Russians start speaking the truth. That says something. The situation must be so horrible. The head of the oligarchs union has stated that Russian economy is beginning to experience uncontrollable contraction. Well, the oligarchs union, actually, it is the head of the union of the largest Russian producers and industrialists, the billion-dollar companies. Some of the owners are in the Forbes lists. Basically, yeah, the union of the oligarchs, you could call it that. And I love how this head of that union puts it. It seems to me that whether it's a cooling or a controlled soft landing, it's neither very soft nor very controlled, speaking about the Russian economy. That it's not controlled, not soft landing, it's gonna be hard dive nose first into the pavement. But we actually have a response from the Russian Ministry of Energy. They have officially reported on the gasoline issue. Have you ever seen Russians actually reporting on issues and trying to fix them? No, me neither, but let me tell you what the Ministry of Energy said. The fuel crisis will be resolved in the coming days, according to the Ministry of Energy. The ministry has found a new reason. Brace yourself. The gasoline shortage is due to price fluctuations on the exchange that prevented full supplies. Before, authorities cited many reasons for the fuel crisis. Overly stockpiling drivers, logistic problems, refinery repairs, and fishermen with diesel-powered generators. These darn fishermen taking all our diesel. Dang it. Well, that's the official stance of the Russian Ministry of Energy. No mention of Ukrainian sanctions in the form of drones. But to end the Russian economy segment of this video, how is Russia managing the shortage of budget? We're talking of tens of billions of dollars of shortage. Well, the biggest expense, of course, is war, military. And a very big portion of that expense is payments. One-time payments to the soldiers, one-time payments to the families of deceased soldiers. So how to make that number smaller? Well, according to the Moscow Times, the largest crematorium on the European continent is opening in Russia, against the backdrop of record human losses in the war in Ukraine since World War II. 207 million rubles have already been spent on the project. It is planned to install 6 Czech taboo furnaces. There will be 20 in total. Each of these furnaces will be able to provide up to 240 cremations per day. So if you burn a soldier who is deceased, he will be declared as lost in battle, not deceased in battle, meaning you do not have to pay the family a one-time big amount of money. No Lada, no bags of potatoes, nothing. The guy is lost, not KIA. That changes everything. That means Russian families who lost their husbands and fathers and brothers and sons, they will not get that one-time payment, saving Russian government more money to be spent on weapons. So how do they fix the big payments? They intend to burn their soldiers' bodies. They're gone. They're not killed in action, they're just gone. Poof. My friends, after Ukraine wins the war, most things can be rebuilt. But there are things that are gone forever. Let me guide you through a piece of Ukraine's history that is now lost. Hidden 336 feet beneath the ancient ground of Bakhmut hides a secret. The world's deepest wine cellar. This was the birthplace of art wine, crafted using techniques passed down through generations. Art wine is not just a sparkling wine, it's a rare piece of history. On 24th of February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, and for a whole year, brave Ukrainian troops defended Bakhmut in the bloodiest battles of the entire war. But in March 2023, Prigozhin with his Wagner group entered the city. The home of art wine fell into the hands of the invaders. Wagner forces did not hide their presence. You can see the officer not believing his eyes. What a treasure they just stumbled upon. Art wine sparkling wine ages for years, and throughout that process, classical music was playing. To the amazement of the occupiers, it was still playing by the time they set their foot into those cellars. You can hear it for yourself. Listen. Not long after that, the leader of the Wagner group, Prigozhin himself, strolls around the cellars admiring the riches of the Ukrainian culture. Prigozhin, in the midst of stealing the bottles, decided to mock the Ukrainian women on Women's Day and wrote a greeting on one of the boxes while his crew was loading the sparkling wine to be taken away. It seemed as if this piece of Ukraine was lost. But it was not so. Just before the city fell, the bravest of men, risking their lives, smuggled out some bottles and they were sent to the US. These last bottles from the cellars of Bakhmut carry the bravery and resilience of the Ukrainian troops who defended the city, some to the very end. Today, in 2025, Ukraine is holding, innovating, creating their own missiles and hitting Russia back. This innovation shows in the Flamingo missile, pink, like the Brut Rosé sparkling wine from art wine. While the Flamingo destroys Russian oil refineries, these last art wine bottles wait for someone who cherishes their story. This is you. You have seen the suffering and resilience of Ukrainian people, so it is only right that you get the chance to own this piece of Ukrainian history, the last of its kind, a sparkling wine that will never exist again. I am working together with Art Wine to get you these last bottles, and only you can get the Rehi Flamingo Special Edition. There is even a flamingo sticker on the bottle for you. There is no better gift than this Flamingo sparkling wine. With it, you gift a piece of Ukrainian history and resolve. If you are looking for a meaning in a gift, well, here it is. This is the gift to someone you love. Get these very last bottles from Bakhmut at shop.artwine.com/products/flamingo. For now, these bottles cannot leave the safety of the United States, so only US orders are accepted. A once-in-a-lifetime chance to own or gift a piece of history that will never be made again. Slava Ukraini, my friends. We have now reached the international news segment of this video, and I will quote Keith Kellogg, the special envoy to Ukraine under Donald Trump. I don't really quote Trump, Vance, or Kellogg, but recently I've been doing that because ever since last week there is a weird situation. Trump, Kellogg, and Vance speak the same thing. Usually their communications go left and right, they don't match up, but now they do. And it's pro-Ukrainian talk and it's anti-Russian stance. We haven't seen that forever. I quote, "I think deep down Putin realizes he cannot achieve victory," end of quote. That's said by Kellogg. Kellogg also supported the idea of shooting down Russian planes or drones if they violate NATO airspace. Now the issue with shooting down Russian planes, drones of course do it all the time. But with the planes is that Russia is also always looking to provoke NATO, looking to get some kind of a reaction out of NATO, because every reaction NATO does to hurt Russia, good, it shows strength, but it also unifies Russian people under Vladimir Putin. We see that in sanctions. The more Russian economy hurts, and it does hurt a lot, it's bleeding, the more Russian people are unifying behind Vladimir Putin. So it has a two-way effect if you want to hurt Russia. That's how it is. You cannot really change that. But that is one point why NATO countries are very careful and very knowingly taking very thought-through steps You know, if Estonia would shoot down Russian jet tomorrow, it's good because we show strength. We show the red lines. It's bad because it really unifies everybody in Russia behind Vladimir Putin. Because then it will be spun in Russia in internal propaganda consumption as we attacked their air force. They will spin it like that, no matter what the truth really is. So it's always a two-way scenario. You gotta be ready for that. If you do shoot it down, you immediately gotta accept that you will make millions of Russians support Vladimir Putin who previously didn't think about it or were feeling very apolitical. One of the biggest communications that came out last week was Vice President J.D. Vance, who reported that Trump is actually considering selling Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine through Europe. Now, Tomahawk missiles are only wielded by 3 countries in the world: United States, Australia, and Japan. They're effective, they're dangerous, they have a massive range and a massive warhead. And Ukraine does not field anything similar. Yes, they have the Flamingo missile. Yes, they have the long-range drones, but they are not in match with the capabilities of Tomahawk missile. I'll just watch a video, 1-minute video, what the Tomahawk capabilities are.
If you think missiles are just big fireworks, think again. The Tomahawk cruise missile is here to blow your mind. The Tomahawk cruise missile, a name that strikes fear into the hearts of adversaries. Developed by Raytheon for the United States and Royal Navy, this long-range subsonic missile is a powerhouse in precision and versatility. Clocking in at approximately 550 miles per hour with a staggering range of over 1,000 miles, the Tomahawk can hit targets from land, sea, or underwater. Its guidance system, a high-tech blend of GPS, Turcom, DSMAC, and INS. Translation: it's nearly impossible to miss its mark. The latest version, Block...
See, that's the issue here. Not the issue, but the thing that Ukraine cannot have. The guidance system is a blend of all of these capabilities. Ukraine really relies on the United States, their satellite, their Intel Starlink when they're guiding the long-range drones and missiles. This Tomahawk, it relies on GPS. It also scans the ground real time. It can change the targets in real time. It can just hover up in the air if there's need to be a change of target live. It can do all of that, meaning it's miles ahead of everything Ukraine can do because they rely on the United States and what the United States is ready to give them intel-wise. With Tomahawk, it would be a different story.
4 comes with real-time retargeting and can even loiter over an area before striking. Talk about next-level adaptability. Since its debut in the Gulf War in 1991, the Tomahawk has been a go-to for preemptive strikes.
See, yeah, Ukraine can develop the Flamingo missile, and they are, and I'm so glad, and it's a great weapon, and it's very cost-effective, but there are some capabilities Ukraine can never have because they do not own the satellites in space, and some of the intel is not given to Ukraine by the United States. If it were, yes, Flamingo could be as good as the Tomahawk, but it's not. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm gonna watch a clip of Donald Trump speaking because in the last week, he took a tougher stance on Russia, which I love to see. Usually when he does that, he immediately doubles down to be anti-Ukraine again. But now, Trump took that stance. Vance mirrored it. Keith Kellogg mirrored it, meaning these 3 people matching their communication. So I feel okay doing this. Dmitry Medvedev, in July, posted again one of his rantings and threats on the United States that Russia is a nuclear country. We are getting ready to send you back to the Stone Age. For some reason, Trump responded to that specific threat by this speech. I'm glad he did, but this needs to be the stance all the time when somebody threatens you, not 2 years later.
We were a little bit threatened by Russia recently. And I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. I announced that, based on his mention of nuclear, and it was really a stupid person that works for him mentioned the word nuclear, I moved a submarine or 2, I won't say about the 2, over to the coast of Russia. Just to be careful.
That's how you communicate. You carry a massive stick but you speak softly. That's how you do it with Russia. And I don't know if Donald Trump is about to get it, or if he's just so fed up with Putin, or whatever his motives. I mean, nobody knows. He's very impulsive, but this is the way to do it. Now, it might be a coincidence that right now he matches up with the real way to communicate with Russia. He might pivot from it tomorrow, but that's the way to do it. You carry a massive nuclear submarine stick on the coast of Russian shoreline, and then you speak to them. Continuing on the international news, here you can see men walking around what seems to be a Ukrainian Magura V5 USV, so unmanned surface vessel, marine drone. These men are Turkish fishermen. They pulled it out, and now they're examining it. So we already know that Russia got their hands on one of this. Now Turkish fishermen have their hand on another one. So 2 of these were lost intact. They're not broken. So this will be handed over, obviously, to the Turkish government. But Turkey, one of the biggest weapons exporter in the world, they have good weapons. They have very high-tech weapons. They will, I think, reverse engineer it and try to come up with similar tech of their own. I think they have something already, but there's definitely things to learn from these Ukrainian tech. What I would advise Ukrainians to do is a self-destruct technology. If a connection is lost with any of these drones, they should explode. And I will end the international segment of this video with the Moldova's elections, because they concluded Sunday, 3 days ago. Now we know all of the votes, and it was a majority victory for the pro-European Union party. Here is the outcome of the elections. 50.2% of the votes went to the Party of Action and Solidarity, PAS. This is the party of the President Maia Sandu. They are pro-European Union, pro-democracy, pro-freedom, liberty, all of these beautiful words, even pro-NATO. They're and anti-Russian party. The pro-Russian Patriotic Electoral Bloc got 24.18% of the votes. This is a massive loss for Putin, because the Russian government pumped $500 million into Moldova to try to influence the outcome of these elections with anything they could, and still the people made their choice known. 50%. I mean, the pro-European Union party has a majority. They don't even need to make a coalition. If they choose to make one, they can do whatever they want in the country. Now, for the Frontline segment of this video, we have sabotage groups working inside Russia. I have a specific video for you. This happened 660 kilometers deep inside Russia. It's crazy. It was even geolocated based on nothing, based on a tree bark. I mean, these guys who geolocate this stuff, they're geniuses. Anyway, Hur, with the support of local resistance, blows up a car carrying a Russian lieutenant colonel 660 kilometers deep in Russian rear. They planted an IED on the road and just waited until these specific cars were next to it, then pushed the button and bada boom, freedom exported. This is the first car that passes it and the second one behind it. And when the second one is close enough, they push the button, export the freedom, and eliminate the driver and the lieutenant colonel, very high ranking officer. Now, weird is that this is depth inside, deep inside Russian rear area, 600 kilometers, and still Hur is able to carry out such kind of attacks with the sabotage groups. This shows you something about the FSB's control of their own areas. This happened on September 27, 2025, and more so than losing one lieutenant colonel is the psychological effect. Like the Operation Spiderweb had, that every truck now on every border of Russia will be controlled if it has Ukrainian drones in it. Well, if a lieutenant colonel is blown up deep inside Russia by sabotage groups, no Russian high-ranking officer can feel safe. They have to divert resources into their own safety, even in the rear areas. And we're talking not by 1 or 2 or 3 man crews to defend them. We're talking 5+, maybe a few extra vehicles to every lieutenant colonel and general. That diverts millions, tens of millions of dollars away from the front to the rear area defense, which is a great cost-effective way to take Russian money once again away from the weapons and force it to another location that is not harmful for Ukraine. That is psychology of war. By the way, Who the hell geolocated this video based on this tree bark, this fields? Based on these two images, how can you geolocate this? But somebody did, somebody found this, where it exactly is. I mean, let's go to the exact location. People looking at the tree, tilted tree with the bark, is like, huh, it reminds me of this location inside Russia. Yes, it must be this one. Next to Georgia, a little bit north from Georgia. This is too specific, man. If somebody did that, I don't know what's going on in your brain, but you're a genius. I will end the Frontline segment of this video with Pokrovsk. See, this is the situation still in Pokrovsk. 3 encirclements, the last 2 ones not physically connected, as I said many times before. The first one is Ukrainian units are in between of the first and second encirclements, but not in between of the second and third, and the third and the main Russian army. Here, these areas are only controlled by Ukrainian drones, and Russians can pass these areas if they want to. This is said by many Ukrainian officers that Russians can move, and we are waiting for them to move, because if they do, we destroy about 75-80% of them, and some will escape, majority will be destroyed. I'll just quote one lieutenant colonel of Ukrainian army this time, Lemko, of the 1st Azov Army Corps on the Russian north of Pokrovsk. I quote, "They're encircled, and we will wait until they surrender, withdraw, or die." This means Azov is not sending their assault units into these encirclements. They are focusing their capabilities of pushing back the main Russian army north of Pokrovsk, because these encirclements need minor attention because they don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have medical, they don't have ammunition. It's a matter of time. Either they die, they surrender, or try to escape, which I said before, Ukrainian drones will make quick work of them. So, just let them be. Soon they will be no more. Thank you for watching, my friends. You notice the new style of these videos, that topics and the topics are exactly the same. It is exactly the same video, only with a better quality. So, please do let me know in the comments what you think about it. We're trying to up the quality, and I will keep bringing you these 3 segments every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. For my next video on Friday, again, Russian economy, international news, and Frontlines. Press the subscribe button to be notified when I upload. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.